And now, it's the Finding Your Spine podcast with host Chase Spears.
Welcome back to the Finding Your Spine podcast, where we call you, dear listener, to live and lead boldly in the truth. Really excited to have my good friend Theresa Carpenter in studio with me here today in Smithville. Man, what an adventure the two of us have had like the last 3 years. This is like as fellow military members, as fellow public affairs officers, as fellow sojourners to try to like have truthful conversations in a realm where that's not always welcome.
Yeah. I never imagined that one day I'd be sitting here in your home state having a conversation on a podcast back many years ago when we were communicating on social media as two active duty members who had a voice online as public affairs officers, which has been a struggle throughout the years. So I look forward to talking about that more with you today.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled to have you. I mean, you've been on my goal list for a long time. Like when I first started doing this show, there was like a long list of people I wanted, and you were like one of the first names I put. I mean, I've admired your work so much on the Stories of Service podcast and the work you've done there, which I know we're going to get into in another discussion later on. So I won't spoil that yet. But this has just been a big dream of mine. So I'm so grateful you flew all the way up here from Mississippi.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be in this beautiful studio, thanks to the Herzog Foundation. It's a wonderful place to be, and I'm honored to have the chance to talk to you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, I'll tell a little bit about Theresa's background here, but we'll tell most of it throughout the discussion. But you retired literally days ago.
Yes, 10 days ago.
10 days ago from the U.S. Navy, a career that spans very nearly 30 years. You're a seasoned communication leader. You're a podcast host in your own right, and an advocate for those who are abused by the military justice system and a culture that really silences viewpoints that are out of vogue with kind of the current cultural malaise, if you will. You're married to Harry. Y'all have now settled in coastal Mississippi. Every time I see pictures from like the waterfront down there where you're at, I'm like, how did I get so far from water? And you're setting out like right now in real time on a mission a lot like mine. I mean, you're kind of ahead of me in that regard, but we're doing a lot of parallel work here.
We are. It's been wonderful to have you to look to as the example of how to find your voice post-military, because as professional communicators, we're trained not to have a voice and not to speak up, but to align ourselves with whatever the prevailing narrative is at the moment. And those who speak up and speak out are often not appreciated or heard. And so it's been wonderful to see how you have used your voice. And we did start off, I think, a little bit more diverged than what we've become, I think, through our friendship and just me being more aware of what's been going on culturally and politically. We've actually aligned our views even more, and it's been wonderful to go on this journey with you, Chase. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun having you as a sister in the fight. And so really the first conversation that we're going to have here for this particular episode really kind of revolves around how we, and it's mostly about you, but we have a shared story here, so this is an opportunity for me to share a little bit as well. How we, as a man and a woman of deep moral principle, how do we like ethically walk through roles where it was, as we arose in rank and arose in position, it became increasingly clear that it was culturally expected of us to pull our values and what we knew to be true back from our professional roles because, well, you joined the military as a communication person, and therefore you somehow ceded your right to use your brain and to implement your values, and that you're supposed to just kind of literally be a puppet with the hand inside of you, just saying exactly what you're told to say, even in your personal capacity.
Right.
And I know that's something that I felt very deeply, and I know you did as well.
I did. And I'll be honest, like if I had seen that the leadership within the Navy public affairs community was open to dialogue and understanding, I might not have gone down as deep into the rabbit hole that I did. But there was never any space or room to have these kinds of hard discussions about things that we were seeing within the community that raised our awareness that things were not as they seemed. And that started for me with the Brett Crozier case, Captain Crozier on the Theodore Roosevelt. For many of your audience that might not be aware of what happened, a commanding officer raised the alarm through a letter regarding a number of cases that were impacted by the COVID outbreak. And he was not feeling as though he was getting the support he needed. And so he wrote a letter that was leaked to the press. And it's a long story. You guys can look it up. But the bottom line is that the CNO hand was forced to relieve him, even though he wanted him reinstated, because it was the politically correct thing to do. And there was never any discussion within the public affairs community about how something that somebody felt so principled on could just be discarded so quickly over what they felt was the right decision at the time to keep people safe. And when I saw that happen, I was really at a place where I could have gone either way. I could have continued to go down the line of I'm an 05 now, or newly 05, I can make 06 and keep going, or I can really look in what's going on in the media and is going on with these investigations in the military. And I can see that there's some cracks here that are not explained. And there was, like I said, no dialogue. There wasn't these conferences like I had with NATO, where you could go and you could talk to Jay Jansen, the leader of the NATO Stratcom, and he may not make any of the changes that we'd want, but he was at least receptive, and he would at least have a dialogue with you. When I tried to have a dialogue with now retired Admiral Charlie Brown, he made sure there were people recording the conversation. He made sure to have 1 million people set it up. It was very sterile. I felt he didn't trust me. And it put me in a position where I felt like I wasn't safe in my own community, because there was not a space where I could raise my hand and say, hey, there's some things going on in the community, or there's some things going on in these investigations that just doesn't make sense. Why are we telling the media this when this is what I've heard? You didn't have that opportunity to do that. And that kind of led to my disillusionment with just my professional community, and seeing that there was just this say-do connect or say-do gap, where we would say one thing, but then what was really going on behind the scenes was something entirely different, where good men and women were being discarded instead of being heard out on legitimate concerns. The COVID mandate is another one, a great example, but that's one of many examples. There's criminal justice examples. So in our own community, you had a thing with Bowe Bergdahl.
Yep.
And go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget that. I mean, I had been the communication director for the unit. So let me back up for anyone who may not know. Bowe Bergdahl is the American soldier who walked away. He was a POW. He was our only POW, prisoner of war, during the time in Afghanistan. And he had walked away from his base when they were downrange, and he was assigned to the 4th Brigade Combat Team of the 25th Infantry Division. Well, a couple years after the fact, I show up to that unit to become their spokesman. So I am the PAO for that brigade. And I notice every year at the anniversary of his disappearance, there are all these news stories about how, we must remember our POW. It was a year ago, or 2 or 3 or 4, however many years now that Bowe Bergdahl has been gone. And so the first time this hits while I'm the communication director at this unit, I'm thinking, okay, this is a national story again. We're the unit. He's a POW. The story that is out there is he fell behind on a patrol and was captured by the enemy. So we're assuming this was an honorable soldier who the fog of war happened, right? As it does. And so I put up a post on the unit social media page about, it gone, away from us but never forgotten, something to that effect. Like, hey, we still pray for him, we still think of him, and we still look forward to the day that our Spartan soldier comes home to us. And it wasn't long afterwards. I'll never forget, I was up on the north end of Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. We were doing a tent-based command post exercise to validate the unit to go to our pre-deployment exercise in Louisiana. And the commander's aide comes to me and he's like, hey, the boss is really mad about this post. You need to take it down. And I'm like, what in the world could be mad about? And I'm thinking the aide must not know what he's talking about. And then I find out, like, no, you're not allowed to talk about this. Get it down. And so I got it down. And then I was like, what do I not know?
Right.
I'm the unit spokesman. And so it took several weeks for me to finally get them to acknowledge to me what had happened. And the truth later came out that he had deliberately walked away from his unit. He had abandoned the unit in Afghanistan, and he was captured after he abandoned his unit and left his rifle and decided he was going to go walking across Afghanistan. And the Army some story had got out somehow. I don't know where it came from. I've never been able to find it out, but somehow the story got out that he had been captured because he fell behind on a patrol. And the Army never said that, but they allowed that narrative to run. And they allowed it to run year after year after year, and they classified everything related to him.
Right.
So like I got later on to finally look at the classified report, which I could not talk about because it was classified. And it's since been declassified. But I remember reading the report and thinking, why in the world is this classified?
Right.
There's no reason. And it was made very clear to me, like, look, this is just the narrative and this is what we're going with. And I was thinking to myself, but we're supposed to be the guys
Arbiters
who carry the
of
truth. The arbiters of truth. Yeah.
And that's what we learn. We learn truth and transparency when we're in Defense Information School, but then we get out there to practice the profession. And really, there's only the truth that they want you to say. I mean, I'll never forget when I realized that the press pool at the Pentagon wasn't asking really hard questions. When John Kirby would be at the podium, he was a brilliant spokesperson. I will take nothing away from the way he's able to convey a message or tell a story, or the way he's able to come across on camera as being as sincere as he comes across. But there were a lot of times that I felt like the media just wouldn't dig deeper and ask sort of the second and third level questions to really get at what these issues were in the run up to Ukraine. Or I mean, I was the person who was assigned to EUCOM, and I used to summarize the Kirby pressers every night. And my observation was these were just surface level questions to get sound bites. They weren't the kind of intellectual or deep thought provoking questions that would really fix problems. And when I saw that there wasn't an appetite on many of these staffs to actually fix systemic issues, but instead just keep the train wobbling on the tracks so that it gets, to the next person that they can hand the job off to, I think I felt a little bit disillusioned with the profession, because I realized that I wasn't going to be able to make the kind of change or make the difference or the impact that I wanted to. And it saddened me. It disappointed me, because it wasn't what I thought that these ranks were. I had worked my whole life from, junior enlisted days. I want to be an officer. I'm now a surface warfare officer. I'm now a public affairs officer, to this pinnacle part of my career. And then it's like seeing When the Emperor Has No Clothes, and you're like, oh, really? This is all I do is prep speeches for these engagements that most of these flag officers don't want to do anyway, but they're forced into doing. And, oh, by the way, they read off of a piece of paper. There's no charisma. There's no storytelling. There's no hook to compel the audience to want to watch what they're saying. It's just this formulaic thing that we're just doing because to say we're doing it. And it disappointed me, and I knew at that point that I was starting to go down another road.
So let's wind the clock back a little bit and talk about how you actually became a public affairs officer, because it's not how you started your career. I was really a unicorn in that I did that all 20 years, but that's unusual. What was your start, and what drew you to decide, like, I think my role in national defense could be serving as a communicator?
So I started my Navy career as an aviation electrician's mate. I did that for nearly 10 years. I deployed on the USS Abraham Lincoln. I did operations in combat during the Iraqi War. And I put in a package to become an officer as an E5, became a surface warfare officer, got deployed on the USS Russell. I did a surge deployment with them as a surface warfare officer. I worked for now the great Admiral Brad Cooper. Shout out to him. He's a wonderful man. He is now CENTCOM. And to this day, we still keep in touch. He's just a great guy. And he knew immediately that I wanted to be a public affairs officer. I met a journalist at a muscular dystrophy camp that I had volunteered with, and was so happy that there were writers and storytellers within the military. As an Airedale maintainer, I just was never exposed to them. So as soon as I found out that there were professional communicators, I recalled the days when I was younger, and I would write in my journal, and I would write stories or poems. I've always been a creative, and I just didn't think that that was an option for me as a military member to do something in the creative arts. I thought that I had to stick with whatever it was they gave me to do, and I was proud to serve. I went on a lot of great deployments. I traveled a lot. I've done a lot of good things, but I never really felt like there was a calling that spoke to me in the way that storytelling does. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity to become a PAO was just so intriguing to me, and as soon as I found out that it was an option, I did everything in my power to become a PAO. I was a cloud duty PAO on my DDG. I did everything. They didn't have a mass communication specialist assigned to the ship. I wrote all the stories. I took all the pictures. I put together a calendar. I did a newsletter. I did ship tours. You name it, I did it. And my CO loved it. The crew loved it. It was a wonderful experience. I had a great wardroom. I have very good memories from my USS Russell days. And that was what I got to do an internship at the Pentagon and at Pac Fleet, and that led to me becoming a 1650 public affairs officer. And my first, I'd say 5-10 years in the community, I was not the person you're seeing today with all these convictions and ethical issues with my profession. I was really just going down the same road that all my other fellow PAOs were going down, and I was happy in the community. I felt like I could cover this exercise, cover this event. I mean, I had stressful experiences. I had things that happened that either I made bad mistakes or things that happened with coworkers and things, but there was never this like convicted, there's something going on here, because I wasn't at those ranks where I could see those things. I just wanted to get to those ranks. Mm-hmm. And I worked my way up. I worked my way through the system. I went all the way to 04, 05. And then once I got to, like I said, about the 05 rank, newly 05, that's when I started seeing that there was so little you could really do to impact the system, or to, I would say, really put forth what a impactful message should be because of all the restrictions. And when I saw that's kind of when I was like, oh, wow, I've got all these skills now. I know how to do all these things, but you guys really don't want that. You just want a talking head that will say and do whatever you want us to do.
You know, it was the strangest thing. I began to have a little bit of eye-opening experience actually very early in my career. We were downrange. We were in Kuwait. And I don't know if you remember when Don Rumsfeld, then Secretary of mm-hmm. Defense, came over and he made that iconic statement, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you might want or wish to have at mm-hmm. another point in time. And then all of a sudden, armor, like truck armor and body armor, became a top news concern, mm-hmm. understandably so. And I was actually there in Kuwait the day. I was the dude running the camera mm-hmm. at Camp Buring when he made that statement. And it turned into a really fun master's thesis to write at the University of Tennessee. But, you know, I'll never forget we had all of these interviews we did with people who were involved in hardening vehicles. And there I was as a young E4 specialist. So I'm just the camera guy at this point in time. And I've got a full-on officer, a major, who's the PAO communication director. He and I are traveling around Kuwait to all these facilities that are doing this hardening on trucks and trailers and equipment. And there was one day we were talking to these guys who would help to harden fuel carriers mm-hmm. so that if they were blasted, they would be more resilient against IED blasts. And this contractor there is doing a masterful job of telling, like, here's what we do and here's how it protects the truck and blah, blah, blah. And I'm filming it, and I'm like, this guy's really good. This is going to be some good B-roll. Mm-hmm. And then the officer stops. He's like, no. Here's what I need you to say. And I thought, hang on. You're not interested in what he's actually doing. It's about, here are the exact words I need you to come out of your mouth. And
narrative.
That was the first realization, like, okay, we're not so much public affairs, like working with news as we were PR. And I, it goes back to the dichotomy. Do we inform or do we influence? Yes. Mm-hmm. But where it really hit me, I was able to kind of set that aside and decided I'm going to, as much as I can, be on the inform versus the influence side, because I feel like that's the thing closest to my calling. But it was at the Pentagon you started seeing it when you hit the commander rank.
Right.
I
That's when
started
you
seeing
see
it at the senior captain and major rank because I was at the Pentagon. And I kept hearing all these years, the military's apolitical. The military's apolitical. We are all apolitical. And I'm there, and I'd written the piece about Bowe Bergdahl that went viral with the Baltimore Sun, saying here's a soldier's perspective on how this should have been handled and why the Army should have never allowed this false narrative to get out. And I'm kind of getting called in on the carpet about it. And one of the explanations I got was, look, these are all political issues, and we don't talk about these issues without talking to the people who deal with Congress and talking to the people who deal with that office and that office and that office. And I thought, hang on, I was always told the military is apolitical. I'm just a soldier who is pointing out where we had an ethical lapse with regard to what narrative we allowed to get out and saying we could do better.
Right.
And I'm being told, this is a political topic. And that was my first moment of questioning what I had been told my entire career.
I have similar experiences where I would write pieces for, let's say, an alumni newsletter. And I felt that I had to have every word of what I was putting out sanitized by the community and blessed. I started feeling, when I started my blog in 2014, that there were people who didn't want me to be as active on social media as I was. I at that point, I wasn't really even taking on political issues. My stuff was more about introspection and mental health and just things that I was feeling inside that I wanted to share. But I started to feel that was not welcome. That the fact that I had this blog, they just saw that as a distraction. And they never created an environment where I felt like I was fully accepted and I was fully embraced by the dominant coalition within my community. Mm-hmm. And I would say that I am somebody that is somewhat of a contrarian, so I understand to a certain degree. But I contrast that. Again, I'll go back to the NATO example. I don't agree with Jay Jansen on everything, but he always created an environment where you could talk to him. He was approachable, and you could go up to him. I mean, even, we have a shared colleague, even Richard Hyde. God knows I don't agree with him on most anything. In fact, I think he defriended me because he's so far to the left now, and I'm so far, in his mind, to the right.
He's no longer a fan of me either.
Which is fine. But the point being is that I could always go to him, Colonel Hyde, and say, I heard this at this meeting. Is this really what we have to do? And he was so open, and he was so approachable. Same thing with Jay Jansen, so approachable. And so I saw this real difference at my last command. I mean, NATO was why I wanted to keep going. I had such a good experience there. And again, I might not have agreed, politically with everything NATO was doing. I didn't care. I was their spokesperson, and I was their girl because in the way that they made me feel and the way that they treated me. I never said a negative word about that organization. And to this day, I still won't really say a negative word about that organization because of the way that I was treated by them. If the Navy had done this, I'm starting to get emotional now, but if the Navy had done that same thing, I would have never been the person that I am now. If Charlie Brown hadn't recorded that conversation and made me feel like he was covering his ass to talk to me, I probably would never have gone down this road, but they created an environment where I felt pushed out of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know how that is.
And to be honest with you, that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I just had people in the community that I felt like I couldn't trust. And I felt like they would spy on me. They'd spy on my social media, not really want to see how I'm doing, not really care about me. I thought maybe they were caring about me. And then I'd follow up because I'd see they'd spy on me. I'd be like, oh, I see that you're in London. Would you like to come by? No. They were just trying to spy on me and see what I was posting about, to see if I was going to be the right fit for whatever command I was going to next. And that just really hurt me. So my story, and I've said the same thing to other people who've asked me, it's a story of disappointment, and it's a story of betrayal. It's not a story of, I hate the Navy. I don't. In fact, I still am grateful for everything that the PAO community gave me. They sent me to San Diego State University. I got to go onto a carrier tour. I assessed the carriers and the deployers. And I don't take anything of that away. Like, a lot of people think I'm not grateful for what they've done for me. I am very grateful. But there was a point where I just felt like they could have been real with me, and they weren't. They lied to me about a professional development opportunity that they had, I think, near Annapolis a year and a half ago, telling me that only the people that had the highest positions of leadership were there, which contrasted the images that I saw that were posted online of people that were on the retirement list that were at the conference. Just be real, that you didn't think. I mean, some people told me it was just they didn't think about it. Okay, tell me that. Tell me that you just missed it. You just didn't think to send the invite to everyone. But don't lie to me. I have no trust in you when you lie. Mm-hmm. Or taking away a duty station because I spoke up about the standards. And I said that taking away the high school diploma and the GED to enlist for the Navy is not a good idea. Why are all these admirals on LinkedIn saying this is a good idea? How is this a good idea to have people that haven't even done something so basic as getting a GED or a diploma? I get it. Things happen. Your life might not be what you wanted in high school, but at least do one small thing before you join to show that you have the potential to work hard. That's all I'm saying. And I was using my own experience and my own story of struggling to get my own high school diploma. Well, that led to me not getting orders to Pensacola, Florida. And I had already put out a social media post by the detailer, told me I had permission to do so, all these things. All my friends and family knew I was going to Pensacola. My husband had already started looking for houses there. I put the video out because I felt personally convicted that this was the wrong direction that we were going. Next thing I know, they take away my orders. That also caused me to lose trust in the organization. So I still love the Navy. I still love the armed forces. But I definitely felt like there were points where someone could have just picked up the phone and not been afraid I was going to record it. Not going to be afraid that just be transparent with me. Jay Jansen wasn't afraid when he'd come up to me at meetings and shake my hand and ask me how I'm doing, ask me what I think of things. You just could have built trust, and they took no efforts to do so.
You know, it's interesting. I had a phone call it's been within the last month or so, I think, with the man who's now the new chief of public affairs in the Army. And we're not close, but we've known of each other for the last few years, and he's always been very kind to me. And he just reached out and said, I'm just kind of curious as to some of your thoughts. And I said, I'd love to talk with you. And we had a good conversation. And I remember telling him as we were getting to the conclusion, I said, if anyone at any level of influence within the field would have had this conversation with me in the last 4 years, there's a very real chance I might still be in uniform.
That's so powerful, Chase.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. And it harkens back to the importance of communication and dialogue. There are people now who I communicate sporadically with who have some ties to DOD. And the fact that they take the time to communicate with me, it means, you know what it means? It means that as a podcaster or quote unquote influencer, I'll go to them and ask them questions about things before I'll just post about it or put my opinion out there, because I know they know more than I do about these issues, and they can give me a context that I'm missing. And that's because they took the time to build that trust with me. The fact that this organization or certain people at this organization lied to me about things that they didn't have to, that they could have just been honest with me. We forgot, or this or that. And it like I said, it led to me ultimately being disappointed that they just weren't the organization that I had hoped they would be. And then I also saw within the last administration that there was this tendency to hyper-focus on race, on gender, on transgender. And to be honest with you, a year and a half ago, I probably wasn't as much bothered by it, but I did think that it was weird. I was like, okay, I'm a woman and this kind of benefits me because now I can go to whatever conference I want and it'll get paid for and all these other things. But I don't really think I deserve this special treatment. And what about the men? Shouldn't they be invited, or shouldn't they? And I know they were, but shouldn't they have their own? I mean, like, what is every single specialty group going to have their own conference and their own issues? I kind of in my mind thought it was unfair, but I saw that was the story they wanted to put out there. And it was and it was just blasted to all of us that this was the narrative and the way we had to go with things. And I just thought, this is going to exclude certain groups, and this is going to make people, this isn't going to bring us together. This is just going to have you go support your American Indian thing. You're going to go support your Black history thing. You're going to go do this. Well, what about the mission? What about war fighting? What about lethality? What about the things that will make us stronger to stand up for when we get challenged? Where are those priorities going to be if we're all focused on all these identity-based events? And so that was another thing that I started to see that kind of made me question like the narrative and what we were pushing.
Well, and that brings back to mind, and we've talked about this a lot one-on-one, and I think it'd be fun to share with the audience here, is the first time I noticed you, I want to say it was around 4 years ago, and what caught my eye was, oh my goodness, there's this active duty public affairs officer who's very open with her thoughts. Now, I didn't agree with a lot of your thoughts.
Right, you didn't.
Right, but you weren't. It was very clear to me you weren't out there like the whole military crowd was, just to drop rhetorical bombs and walk away, right, and to draw attention to yourself. We had different perspectives, but you were defending points of view and you were asking tough questions, and so you kept showing up on my feed, and eventually I followed you. I was like, I don't think we're going to ever agree on much, but I'm interested in watching the way that she is actually trying to engage people in a conversation.
Right.
And then over time, I started seeing, wow, she's thinking about this deeper and deeper and deeper.
Right.
And
I started going deeper into the issue.
Yeah.
And I started seeing the issues differently because I was going so deep into them. Mm-hmm. That was what was so interesting about it, Chase, was that I didn't understand as I was doing this that I would end up where I am now. I was so passionate about it. I was like, extremism training, that's wonderful. We should all be talking about our biases. We should all be confronting what we previously think about a particular class or race. And I was somebody who was very, and I still am, very pro women, but I'm pro everyone. And so I loved even that stuff too. I was very much into women in the military and supporting women in the armed forces. But then I saw that when we hyper-focused on it, it excludes this other whole group of people that we need for the fight. Mm-hmm. And so it creates a us versus them kind of mentality that I think isn't ultimately great for the organization. But I would have never thought that unless I had gone deeper. I did the same thing with animal advocacy, Chase. That's what's so funny. I started off in the animal advocacy world as in the breeder community, where all the people are, breeding the dogs and putting them out to the world and selling them. And then as I got down deeper into the rabbit hole, I started realizing, oh, shoot, how are these animals being bred? Where are they being bred? Where are they being sold? Do we really know how they're being raised? And I started just kind of going and peeling back the onion and peeling it. And I sort of shifted from being in the breeder crowd to being in the rescue crowd to kind of moving back over towards the center of, yes, people should be allowed to sell and raise animals, but they also should be, sadly, some of them, if they raise enough of them or they have enough of them, there should be some kind of maybe legislation or some kind of inspection process or something along those lines. And so that's really where my views mature, and they change, and I'm allowed to change as I develop my voice and I deepen into an issue. But what you'll find is that the audience will pick apart any way they can a way to discredit your message if your message comes across polite or respectful. They'll try to do something to discredit that because they know how strong it is, because it's honest, it's transparent, it's truthful, and that's something that has always just been a big part of my work is to really question and understand what your beliefs are, and to be okay with changing your beliefs if new information comes in.
And you are an absolute master at that. I mean, it's been fun. And I'm not trying to say this in like just reading a novel kind of way, but it's been so few people are willing to be convinced by new evidence.
I know.
Right? And I mean, the people that we are today, like 4 years ago when I first saw you, I never would have imagined how much we would actually agree and be in line. And there's some areas where we differ still.
We do.
And that's fine. And we walk through those and we agree to disagree and we still shake hands and we have tough discussions, right? But I mean, you even had me on your show.
I did.
A few months ago, and we wrestled through some of this like in real time.
We did. That was when I really realized the whole oppressor-oppressed argument regarding DEI. Because up until that point, I really did think that DEI was ultimately well-intentioned and a good thing for organizations to embrace. But when I saw, well, where does it end? How many groups are now going to be on the outskirts, and how many are going to be on the inskirts, and the inskirts are going to be the oppressors, and the outskirts are going to be the oppressed? I mean, I could say the same thing about what happened with my community, but I know that if I had played along to get along and I hadn't been the person I am, none of this would have happened. So there is a responsibility on my side. I think good leaders want followers who have their own voice and will question things, choosing their battles, of course. But at the same time, I understand that being who I am comes with a certain amount of responsibility and a certain amount of ownership. I'm not oppressed. I'm a person who stands up and is convicted of my beliefs, and my beliefs, while they're unshakable, they can evolve.
Yeah, and they absolutely have. It's been neat to just kind of see how we've both really gone deeper into these things and both challenge each other to learn new things.
Right.
And it's forced me to even know, okay, well, you've even challenged me sometimes, said, well, can you really explain that? I'm like, oh, gosh, I got to think about that.
I mean, we had to talk today about an issue.
We sure did.
And kind of walk through how we feel about it. And that's when I'm still, to be honest with you, I'm still wrestling with what is the right answer with. But I think that's what life should be about. It should be about taking on these hard issues and really wrestling with them intellectually until we get to a place where we're solving problems in a way that is fair and equitable to as many people as possible. I mean, that's ultimately what you want. You don't want to marginalize anyone. You don't want to be disrespectful or unkind to anybody. And I think that's the goal of what I'm trying to do with this work. But to be honest with you, I wish nothing but the best for my community, and I have a lot of wonderful memories, and there's still some good people who I keep in touch with from the community, and I still feel very proud of my service and what I accomplished there. There were certainly some people who've disappointed me, and that's unfortunate, but I do think that ultimately I'm proud to have done it.
So let's go back to you're a military communicator. And well, actually, before I even ask this question, I'm going to ask a different one.
Okay.
What's it like being a PAO on a ship? Like my only experience on a ship is museum ships, and I love them.
Right.
But I got to spend, I've only spent one morning on an actual active duty naval vessel. It was the USS Wasp.
Okay.
So it was coming into port at Kuwait at the port of Shuaibah. It was during my 04-05 deployment. And I have no idea how this all got put together, but I was going to get to go out to the ship. And it was like a mile out in the water still. And so we took this tugboat out too. And we're climbing the rope ladder. And we got to spend the morning on the boat, and we had breakfast, and we're up on the flight deck, and we're just getting to see all these amazing things and talk to the skipper. And then the next thing I know, when I come back on deck, I'm like, we're at port. You know, like when I got out here, there was nothing but water around us. And that's my only experience. What's it like doing this job on a ship?
I mean, it's definitely a bit like Groundhog Day. I mean, every day you're kind of just doing the same things. I mean, because I've been doing it so long, like I've been enlisted, and I was on a carrier as an aviation electrician's mate. So I had my enlisted career and what that was like being on a huge ship with 5,000 of your closest friends, and the just enormity of what that entails, and the different departments, and getting my enlisted surface warfare qualification, my enlisted aviation warfare qualification. So there was that life. And then I became an officer and had a whole nother life as a naval officer on a small boy. So that was a whole nother life from carrier life, because carrier life, 5,000 people, you can literally never run into the same person more than once on a carrier because it's just so huge. I mean, it's just massive. But a small boy, 323 people. Everybody knows everybody. The ship rocks all the time. You know, it's more like a little town. I like the DDG life a lot better because it's just more personable. Everybody knows everybody. It's fun. I mean, I really enjoyed my DDG tour. I was only there for 2 years, but it was a wonderful experience. My commanding officer was great. I have so many good memories. Just the wardroom is just this wonderful group of officers, and we all eat together. That was a really good experience and a good tour. So every tour on a ship was a little bit different. It's hard to really summarize it, because then I went to a amphib, and I was on with Marines and Navy, 3,500. And so I got to see all these different ship-to-shore evolutions with like those big amphibious assault craft, and that was cool, right? I got to go down in the well decks and see well deck operations. The helicopter operations on a amphib is different. I was on USS Boxer, so that had its own experiences and personality. Then I go to Nimitz, and I'm a carrier PAO. So now I'm a department head. I'm in charge of 25 sailors. I have sailors on dispersed operations on the DDGs and the cruiser. So that's a whole nother different experience. Then I go and I assess those same people, the carriers and the amphibs. I'm an assessor. I fly out right before they go to sea and do their workups, and I grade them. And then I go to NATO. So I go to a joint tour, and then I go to NATO. And so I've had all these different cool Navy experiences. So on the one end, I can tell you how hurt I was about these people and this drama and silly things. But on the other end, I can tell you how great being at sea was, and the camaraderie with my shipmates and my brothers and sisters. It's amazing. I mean, because you're there all the time with people, and you have this opportunity to really develop these bonds. And then sometimes, just every now and again, there's a mission that pops up that is like making major headline news, and now you're suddenly a part of it, whether we're, I didn't do it, but others have, rescuing people at sea, or you're part of combat operations, which I was in Syria and Iraq. And you're like, oh my gosh, this stuff's in the headlines. And it's our aviators who are the ones who are dropping this ordnance each day. And oh, by the way, I'm seeing the weapons systems videos in the operations meetings of the things that the targets we're hitting. I mean, that's just powerful to think that your ship and your mission is communicating that. Or when I got to be the part of the OpTask VI, which is where we capture video and footage of other countries who are approaching us aggressively, coming in too close to our ships, or crossing our bow in a very aggressive way. They're basically harassing us. Mm-hmm. And the only way that you can get them to stop harassing us is by recording it. And so we had to go through a whole process of teaching our communicators how to properly record constant bearing, decreasing range, and how to get that on a clip, and how to describe that on a clip. And I got to be a part of that. I got to be a part of the training for that when I was an assessor. So I've had it's hard, like you asked a very simple question, and I don't even have like a quick answer for you, because there's just been so many amazing experiences while serving.
So in the Army, and I kind of in some ways like you, that I've had 2 years of space to now reflect, and a lot of the good memories are starting to come back. When I'm getting to be with great teams and do great missions and parachuting into Australia and all these amazing things. Mm-hmm. It's easy for some bad mememories at the end.
It's easy to let the betrayal overshadow all that good stuff I just told you about.
Yeah, and but I'm going to come back to an important question in a minute. But I'm having fun geeking out now. You've been out of the Navy while we're recording about 10 days now. By the time it runs, it'll been a matter of weeks. Is it too soon to go on a museum ship yet?
I mean,
you're not far from the USS Alabama.
I know. There are a lot of battleships near my house, but it's strange because it's like it really hasn't really hit that I'm actually done. Because I've been on the podcast journey for 4 years. It has helped me tremendously, because it's helped me sort of let go and go, okay, this is my new life now. I'm now a content creator. I'm now a citizen, a volunteer, a wife, a dog mom. I'm all those other things now. Mm-hmm. And I knew when I left the Navy that this was going to be the last job I had. I might take work when I want to work, but I was always going to save enough money and be responsible enough with my lifestyle to where I could rely on myself and my husband now, thankfully, to live and to be able to do and invest in the projects that were the most meaningful to me. So this was a plan that I had in my 20s when I realized that I got picked up for Seaman to Admiral, and I realized that a pension was available to me I was like, okay, well, what do I have to do now to ensure when I'm in my 40s and 50s, I can retire? And I did all those things. I did the things that I set out to do within the military. And I was going to go as long as I could until it stopped being fun. And it got to that point where my beliefs and my values were incompatible with with the direction of where the community was going. And when I saw that, that's when I had to leave. Otherwise, I wouldn't, like you said, if I had had the leaders and the people that I respected, like if I had stayed at NATO, like NATO wanted to keep me for another year. When I lost my orders to Pensacola, the detailer was talking to me about just keeping me at NATO. And the only reason I didn't stay there was because my husband wasn't going to live there. And so he was staying in Norfolk and said, I'm not going to come and stay in England with you. And so because of that, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to spend a year by myself in London. I don't love it that much to not be with my family. Mm-hmm. So I had to make that choice. But I really enjoyed that tour, and I enjoyed many of my tours in the military. So you're right. You always have to remember to let the good stay in there and really hang on to that, because there's a lot to be grateful about with a life of military service.
And there really is. I mean, it's such a part of who I am. It's such a part of my story. Mm-hmm. And even the frictious parts at the end were the inspiration for this very show.
Right.
I mean, literally, the title of it, Finding Your Spine, was what I started telling people
right
when I was working with them the last couple of years. And so, I mean, it still echoes in my story, and it always will. And even the trials made me stronger.
Right.
And I think that's what trials do. But the thing that I think I'm the most excited about digging into in our last little bit together here is, you mentioned earlier, one of the things that we share is we're in some ways contrarian, and it's not deliberately to be abrasive or deliberately to be flies in ointment, but out of a desire, a love for the institution, a love for the career field, a desire to see it fully embraced, fully trusted, right? To reach the apex of there was once a dream and it was Rome, right? And wanting to help it. And you and I both know from experience that's not welcome. What was it like for you? Like, I know you talked about seeing the say-do gap, but what was it like for you as a naval leader, as a lieutenant commander, and as a commander, as you're seeing these things, and you're at the rank where it's just kind of expected, you're a company man, you're a company woman now.
Oh, yeah.
You don't point these things out. If you see them and you want to talk about them, you have hushed conversations.
Right.
What was it that was different about your willingness to say, I'm not going to have a hushed conversation about this. I care enough about it to actually have this conversation out loud, knowing it was probably going to get you disinvited from the cocktail circuit. Like I know what it was like for me. What was that moment for you? I mean, what made you decide I can't be like everybody else in this regard?
Because I really wanted to know why we were covering certain things up. Like I really felt like it wasn't fair to the American people when the GW had a rash of suicides to not understand what was the circumstances and the environment that led to those suicides, for an example. Why weren't we just transparent about the things that we need to fix? Or when I would see a task force set up with all these recommendations and then none of those recommendations would get followed. And I would see sailors, as I was starting my podcast, approach me about their investigations and how their investigations would be needlessly delayed for years. And when I would try to interview the Navy JAG community, they'd blow me off for an interview. Like, I tried, Chase, to engage with military leadership and have them come on my show, and some of them would. Some of the really outspoken social media personalities within military leadership that were known to go on social media, they would engage, purely positive, and I was okay with that. There are a few who've been on my show, and they are excellent leaders, and those are not the shows that I have where I talk about all the hard issues, and I respect them. They respect me. I would have had those same kinds of conversations even with the admirals, where if they didn't even want to go there and they just wanted to talk about the good things that they were doing, I still would have had those shows with them. And I would have treated them the same way that I treated those social media influencers. And if they told me the ground rules that we weren't going to go into these issues, just to build that relationship, I would have done it. Just like what you said with the colonel that you spoke to. Just include us. We're not asking you to spill the beans on, I mean, even the people that I talk to now about stuff with DOD, they don't tell me everything. They don't share with me all the inside baseball, and I don't ask all the inside baseball because it's none of my business. And I want to build that trust and that rapport. And if they had just included me, like you said, and I'm still open to them including me today. I'm still open to some of them at some point telling me what's going on with the military. Because when they engage with podcasters like me and you, I believe they get in front of issues. Because now we have an open dialogue with these people, and we're not as likely to put out a nasty story because we're going to take that same thing that we just heard and we're going to go to them first and say, hey, is this, what's going on here? But I don't have those people that I trust or that I've built that relationship with anymore in the Navy anyway. In DOD I do. To be able to ask those questions. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think that's the steps that the military can take to build that trust. And I know we'll talk more about the shows and the podcast, but I think that's what the Navy and the military needs to do in public affairs, is that they need to start engaging with who really are the influencers within the military community, because guess what? It's not the New York Times anymore.
It's not, yeah.
You know, it's not CNN. People don't trust those organizations. Not to say that they are all bad or that they never tell the truth, but people are trusting you. They're trusting me. And if we can help them help tell their story, we will. But you have to include us in the process.
When I think, at least, I'll speak just from the Army side, and you've probably got some experience from the Navy side as well on this. The Army, at least under their last administration, started getting big onto, we need to engage the influencers. We need to engage the influencers. They even had this Army influencer conference, and they brought up all these very junior people. Juniors are kind of mid-grade, I should say, who are influencers. Several of them are very, I would argue, political. Some of them were not. And a lot of them are really good at their content production. I'm not trying to knock them. They do a really good job at what they do. But they're not reaching the American public. They're kind of talking inside the formation, if you will. And they had a whole conference, flew them up there, put them on TDY orders. The Chief of Public Affairs met with them. The Secretary of the Army met with them.
Navy did something similar with the ambassadors.
And I'm watching it, and I'm like, but you're not putting a single officer on Rogan. You're not putting a single general on Sean Ryan. I mean, like, if you really want to engage influencers and talk to the public, like, get outside of the cheerleaders.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, like, it's a real show of trust when these admirals or these generals come on your show or they come on my show, because it shows that they understand that there is a potential, even off camera, that we might ask them difficult questions. And there's a trust there that they're extending. And I appreciate that. I mean, that means a lot to me. So to your point, there's definitely some broken trust there when they only want to have their converted, or they only want to have the people around them that will just agree and will parrot whatever it is they want. It doesn't, it's kind of like all the people on the left, they just want to go to their left media. All the people on the right, they just want to go to their right media. Well, what I respect so much about your content is that while you definitely identify as being more on the right, you're not a puppet. If there's something that you don't agree with on the right, you're going to call it out. If there's something I don't agree with on either side, I'm going to express my opinion on it. And that's what we need to protect and preserve in this country. And so that's what I hope going forward. I see the Navy did try to do an ambassador program. There were some good ones on there. Gervia Lata, who's been on my show twice, amazing man. He's been a commanding officer on the USS John P. Murtha. He's now in Navy recruiting. He was one of the ambassadors. Alexa Run Lama or something. God, Alexis Travis, I really like her. She's much more left of center than me, but I still very much like her content, and I'm a fan. But then we also had and he's, what I'm told, is by all accounts an outstanding sailor, but he is also moonlights as a Navy drag queen. And I really didn't understand why, again, nothing against him professionally, but I just didn't understand why he was chosen when he's pushing this transgender ideology that I would argue, and we can get into it more, but anyone who follows either one of our content has seen how we feel on this, but who's pushing a divisive ideology. It is. And warfighters and drag queen shows, I just don't think go together.
Those things are oil and water that do not mix.
So anyway, again, do whatever you want in your off time. I'm not, people are free to dress and do whatever they want. But at the same time, I think we got to be really careful about who we choose as our ambassadors, who we pay to come to conferences and carry our water. And instead of paying people, why don't we try to engage with more independent voices, because that shows your credibility with a different public than just your converted. The people that you already know are just going to say, and I'm saying both sides do it. I mean, the right side does it with Fox News, the left side does it with CNN. So I'm not saying that either side doesn't do it, but I think what people like about my show and your show is that we're willing to have these difficult conversations regardless of political affiliation.
We're willing to be disliked by both sides a little bit, right? Yeah.
For sure. Yes, I've been called out by the right too. So for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's I definitely believe that we need people in the military who have conviction. Right. And so when I see people like, the Navy drag ambassador, I'm like, what image does that present?
Right.
And we could say that at an echelon at all services. And we'll get more into that in our next episode, but I do want to get close to wrapping this one up. But in that, let me ask you, what would you say? Like, we still have a lot of contacts in the military public affairs realm, both at the service and joint level. What would you say to our colleagues who... I get DMs. You probably get the same ones.
I get tons of spies, tons of DMs.
Chase, I agree with you. You probably get them. Teresa, I agree with you, but I can't be seen agreeing with you. So I mean, what do you say to them? Like for me, my siren call is like, find your spine.
Right.
Do something about it. Like, what do you say to them?
Well, I know they're not in the same position as I am, where I have a pension. I knew that I was going to get out, so I understand. And they're trying to promote. They're trying to make the next pay grade. What I would say is tell the truth. I mean, if they see something, say something. Have the conviction. I mean, I don't always agree with his tactics, but I do admire Rob Green, for an example. Active duty, Navy commander.
American hero.
Still on active duty. How hard has that been for him? He knows he needs to stick around. I think he's got, like 10 kids? He's got,
he has a big family.
He has a big family. He needs to stick it out until retirement. He loves the service.
He really does.
And he has shown an entire generation what respectful, and again, there's been a couple times that I think he could have been a little bit more tactful in how he advocated, but so can I. But look to him. See what he's doing out there. And if you can't do it on social media, find one of us who can and tell us what you're seeing so that we can help raise awareness on these issues. We want to be, if you can't be the mouthpiece because you've got too much to lose, we understand that. You and I both know there were lines that neither one of us crossed while we were on active duty. And that's the reality of it. Some people can say I was spineless because I know there are, especially as I was getting out. A lot of people criticized me about some things that happened, maybe we'll get into it in the next show, as I was leaving. And if you can't do that, at least find someone who can help bring awareness to those stories.
I love it. And shameless plug, if you're newer to this show and you haven't seen episode 1, that's Rob Green. He was our inaugural American hero. Watch that episode.
Awesome.
And stick around and watch the next one with Theresa, because we're going to come back and talk even more in depth about what does life look like for you now?
Sure.
Like going into open advocacy work. You've already been doing it. But
years.
like this is like a whole new season,
Whole new chapter.
and it was just far too much to try to cover in one episode. So I'm grateful you're sticking around, and so we'll pick that up here in just a minute. But until then, we're coming to you from the Herzog Foundation Studios in Smithville, Missouri, which is an awesome, awesome team that is catalyzing Christian education nationwide. You should totally check them out at herzogfoundation.com. If you'd like to learn more about me and my work, you can go to chasespears.com. And Theresa, where can they find you?
SOS, Stories of Service, Ordinary People Who Do Extraordinary Work. Host is me, Theresa Carpenter. You can look up Theresa Carpenter, Theresa with an H, and then SOS. It'll come right up. It's on YouTube. I just surpassed 1,000 subscribers, and it's also wherever you listen to podcasts.
And also your website.
Oh, website, theresastapestries.com.
Yeah, that's a fun place.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about your publications there in a minute. So,
Okay.
But until then, here on this podcast, we try to bring you stories of courage to show you it can be done. But it's up to you not to put them into practice. It's up to you to find your spine. So get to it. I'm Chase Spears. Thanks for listening.
Remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next time on Finding Your Spine.